Hey guys, this is Camfrey15 back at it with another video for you guys. And I'm back with another movie review for you guys. And we are here to review the highly anticipated and most recent MCU installation film and the very first MCU film officially back in theaters now that I guess you can say things seem to be opening up back to normal. And we start off really movie wise for the MCU off with the highly anticipated Black Widow movie that was supposed to release a few months ago last year. Um, but highly anticipated. This is the story of Black Widow, where this movie takes place essentially shortly after Civil War with the events that happened there. And we see Natasha's story finally told in her own vision, in her own way, where she essentially confronts things from her past as she tries to, I guess, overachieve that, I guess you can say. But the movie. I thought this was really a good movie, and I'm talking non-spoilers. I'll update you guys when I'm going to get into my spoilers section. But I really much enjoyed this movie. This movie, I thought, had a lot to do with family. Like, this movie was very centered around the family of Black Widow and, our Natasha with her sister, her adoptive mom, and dad. And I really like the whole family aspect in this film and everything like that. The action scenes, my God. The action scenes, every action scene in this film was really good. Like, it was 10 out of 10 stuff. Like, all the action scenes, if you like the MCU and you like action scenes, this movie has really damn good action scenes. Like, I don't even like, from what I can remember, there was not one fight in this film that, well, I did not freaking like, that I did not like. I loved all the fights in this film. I thought each and every fight was really freaking great, cool, and just badass. Um, and some of these fights were honestly just, you just see some of the characters taking shots in these fights, and you're like, damn, these guys are taking some shots, which they made characters in this film take a lot of punishment. There is, you see, if you see in the trailer the Yelena versus Natasha fight. My God, that fight was physical as hell. I'm not even going to go into details of that fight. You have to check out my spoiler review for that. But I was sitting with my friend, and I'm like, they're beating the ever living shit out of each other. The Natasha versus Taskmaster fights, they were all good in their own ways and stuff like that. I'm telling you, the fight scenes were just great. So yeah, the story I thought was pretty good as well. Pretty convincing story, especially going back into the past of Natasha Romanoff with past incidents involving one of the main villain, and the Red Room and stuff like that, overarching whole story knit together about the other Black Widows and the Red Room and stuff like that. I thought the story was really good and stuff like that. I thought the villain, Drakov, I think that's how you pronounce his name. I don't know. He was a pretty sinister type of dude. He really was. And then Taskmaster, I thought, was a pretty decent villain. I want to go out to say it was the best MCU villain, but I thought Taskmaster was decent. And that would probably be the only thing I feel like a lot of people are going to more than likely critique. Now, I'm not going to get into details why I said that statement. You're going to have to go check the movie out on your own, or you're going to have to wait till I talk about it in the spoilers section. But I definitely can see people critiquing the Taskmaster character. But I very much enjoyed it. I thought the music was good. I thought the settings were really good. And this movie was just, I thought this movie lived up to the hype. Now, that's just my opinion. Now, in your opinion, maybe you felt like Black Widow didn't live up to the hype, because they delayed it over and over and over again. Now, again, you can't really, I guess you can say, prevent the delays because, well, we were at a serious time with the pandemic. And we're still kind of in a little bit of a pandemic. It's just things seem like they're getting better. Um, so yeah, the thing is, you know, I felt like the movie was worth your money, whether you watch it in theaters or on Disney Plus. Um, I like the film a lot, and I think it's a pretty good film and stuff like that. And it's a solid MCU entry. Again, I think a lot of people are going to send their sentiments of saying it sucks that this movie had to be delayed constantly because obviously the pandemic. But obviously, this sucks so much more the fact that this movie did not come out before Avengers Endgame. Like now, looking at the grand scheme of things, I really do wish this movie came out before Endgame came out. But I will say the one thing that actually plays to its strengths is the fact that it coming out, this movie coming out after Endgame, it was essentially going to be the first one of the first few movies after Endgame, and the fact that Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff is deceased in the MCU. This film, when you get to the emotional parts of this film, this movie hits really hard because you're like, she really passed away and she really died, man. This sucks. And it's cool to see and stuff like that. And it's like at the end of the time, you see these characters, obviously, Alexei, her mom, Yelena, and you're like, damn. After Endgame, she could have probably went back to this family, but now she can't because guess what? She's dead, and it freaking sucks. It just sucks. That's the one thing about this movie that I love a lot is that it really hits you in the feels because now that Natasha's gone, you know it just hits you harder and stuff like that. And that's what the thing I like about this movie, the fact that they, even though in the grand scheme of things of this movie, in the main storyline plot, yes, it has the Red Room implications and stuff like that. But in terms of progressing the MCU storyline outside of the post-credit scene, it just really ties in nicely to explain, what Black Widow did during the time after Civil War before she eventually reunited with obviously um, Steve and Sam, and they went on their little rogue tour before Infinity War started and everything and things like that. But this was a really good movie. I enjoyed it. Again, it's up to what you guys feel like it, but yes, in terms of the MCU, it was another good product. Definitely, I enjoyed it, and I definitely did like it. And yeah, and the next MCU film we're gonna get in theaters is going to be Shang-Chi. Now, the only other MCU product right now that we're getting alongside Black Widow is Loki, which Loki's going to premiere its final episode this upcoming Wednesday. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do a Loki review. I probably might end up doing a Loki review. We'll see. But I definitely enjoyed this movie, and yeah. So other than that, that's kind of it. So the next movie we're gonna be waiting for the MCU is gonna be Shang-Chi, which comes out in September. But again, if you want to know where to watch Black Widow, you can either watch it back in theaters, or if you want to take the more safe approach because you just don't feel comfortable and you'd rather see this movie in the vacancies of the home, this is probably going to be like the last big time movie that's going to be on a streaming service, I guess outside of Suicide Squad. And you can on Disney Plus, if you go to Premier Access, you can pay essentially $29.99, which is around $30 to watch it on Disney Plus. Either or is fine. If you really want that movie experience, I suggest you just go check it out in the movie theaters. So I went to go to my movie theaters today. I checked it out and I had a blast watching it. But other than that, that's kind of it. So, anyways, in terms of my non-spoiler stuff, if you guys like this video, leave a like, put in the comment section your thoughts are your hype levels of Black Widow? When are you gonna go see it? Yada yada yada. Again, hit that subscribe button if you want to get more movie reviews. Um, Coming out soon, I guess, when it comes to other MCU stuff and things like that. And if you do subscribe, hit that notification bell icon and stuff like that. So yeah, but other than that, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Now, for you guys, it's going to be a quick second. I think for me, I'm going to take a quick little break and then I'll be back on recording the spoiler section. But again, if you guys have seen the movie, you can stay for the spoiler. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch the movie whenever you can and then come back to the video to see the spoilers or hear my thoughts on the spoilers for the movie. But other than that, guys, I'll see you guys in the spoiler section. So till then, guys, I'll catch you guys then. See you guys later. Peace. Hey guys, back with the spoilers discussion or the spoilers section of this video. And man, the spoilers are very interesting to talk about. Again, this is Black Widow's story, and this essentially cuts back to essentially in Ohio in the year of 1995, where we see her family of her, Yelena, Alexei, and Melina, as eventually Alexei gets this whole thing about Shield coming up on them because he stole something from Shield. Which we later find out it was mostly Hydra. And essentially they get away, they go off to Cuba, and that's when we see, we see Melina's obviously injured, so she gets taken away, and this kind of gets Natasha a little bit passive aggressive because really the life she enjoyed is being taken away from her. And we see a much younger Drakovich, I think that's how you pronounce his name, or Drakov, essentially, see like, oh, she's intense. She's got a lot of intensity, stuff like that, because some of these people try to take away Yelena, and Natasha wasn't having none of it. She's like, I'm going to kill you and stuff like that. And that's when we cut essentially 21 years later into the present timeline, essentially taking place after this movie, which I said in the non-spoiler review. It takes place after the events of Civil War, after essentially when Black Widow essentially, I guess you can say, went against the Sokovia Awards. And obviously she's on a call with Thunderbolt Ross. And the thing is, Thunderbolt Ross is thinking she's got her cornered somewhere, but we find out, well, guess what? She's like on a tanker, like halfway across the planet. So, she totally tricks Thunderbolt Ross, and then she goes into hiding. Now, she hangs out with this friend who's been giving her some, things to aid her in her little stay underground type of hiding things. But essentially, things come back up from the past when, well, we cut over to her sister, Yelena, and she ends up actually killing somebody she knew, but because obviously person she knew made to use this type of serum to snap Yelena back into her senses and stuff like that. Essentially, the plot line of here is they have to stop Drakovich from creating more Black Widows and essentially controlling them. We later find out in the film that essentially Drakov essentially is controlling the Black Widows, because what we find out is essentially what Alexei and Melina were doing is they stole information from Shield, which again, like I said, was Hydra, and it was the type of protocol that essentially was like the Winter Soldier protocol, essentially having Drakov essentially control the Black Widows, and the Black Widows knew what they were doing. It's just they couldn't do nothing about it. They were being controlled. So essentially, like Bucky and the Winter Soldier's, process and everything. But that's when she wakes up and she realized, okay, I need to get this serum, and I need to be able, and I need to essentially get this, get some help so I can frickin', be able to stop Drakov and free the other Black Widows from doing his bidding and stuff like that. Now, in the meantime, Natasha, after a generator failed, she goes out to go to get more gas for a generator. But because this is when we see the first appearance of Taskmaster in the MCU, and their first fight, my God, was insane. Like the first fight was crazy. Obviously, it makes sense why Black Widow gets beaten. And again, if you know Taskmaster from the comics or any other TV shows, are the Spider-Man games or the Avenger game, the most recent Avengers game that honestly is a flop. But if you've seen Taskmaster in the comics or any other property of Marvel, you know that Taskmaster essentially is a hitman, and Taskmaster essentially copies whoever the abilities of whoever he fights. Taskmaster is mostly a Spider-Man villain, from my mistake, but Taskmaster will go after anybody, even the Avengers. Like I think there was a comic, I think there was like a comic or something, like in the comics. Like I think he even took down the entire Avengers at one point, and stuff like that. But essentially, he's got a photographic memory, especially thanks to his mask, of the fact that he can essentially replicate, you know, characters' moves. Like in this movie, he essentially replicated all the moves of all the Avengers up to the point of Civil War. So he had like Black Panthers stuff, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman, Captain America, but Hawkeye, bunch of Avengers, you know, powers and stuff like that. So yeah, going to be very interesting. I'll talk about Taskmaster by the end of this to give you my thoughts on Taskmaster. But yeah, she gets attacked by Taskmaster. Eventually, she gets, you know, kicked into the river. Taskmaster looks like he's got the serum to be able to, which would be the ones that would be able to take the Black Widows from out of their, I guess, controlled state, but they're not there. Eventually, Natasha meets up with Yelena, and they have a nice little conversation where they kind of, you know, like, oh, why'd you leave me? And then you get this crazy, insane fight. My God. How, I don't, bro, these characters were taking bumps. Yelena was taking hits. You know, freaking Natasha's taking freaking plates being thrown in her face. My goodness, they're choking each other out with freaking curtains. I'm like, what? Honestly, that was honestly for me after I saw that scene, I'm like, this was a top 10 fight scene. This was a top 10 fight scene. Natasha versus Yelena was a top 10 fight scene. It was a top 10 fight scene, hands down. I was like, this is phenomenal. Again, like I said, every fight in this movie was great. Eventually it gets to the point where the other Black Widows are coming after them and stuff like that. And the thing is, one of the Black Widows ends up dying or sacrificing or killing themselves because they're being controlled and everything. It looked disgusting and nasty. Again, also, can I just say this? Natasha takes a lot of bumps and a lot of hits in this. And I'm like, bruh, how does she not break any bone of her body? Well, you later see that she ends up breaking like her nose to be not controlled by Dreykov. But anyways, they managed to get away from the Black Widows, but then Taskmaster and his tank shows up, and he kind of is a catalyst to trying to take them down. But eventually, tricking Taskmaster, they eventually get away and everything. And then that's when they come with the plan. Well, guess what? We have to free Alexei because maybe he knows the whereabouts of the Red Room, because that's what they're also trying to find out. We find out that we find out something special. Well, actually, I'll save that till the end when we get the Taskmaster reveal. So eventually what happens next is they go to the hidden, they go to this prison cell where we see a much older, fatter version of Alexei, who was the Red Guardian, aka Red Guardian essentially is the Russian version of Captain America. He's essentially Captain America, but he's for Russia, essentially. So yeah, and you see he's kind of been down in the dumps and stuff like that. And obviously, you know, you can see that Natasha and Yelena, they don't respect him like they used to have, especially about the incidents with the past and everything. You get this crazy scene in the prison, in this prison break scene where Natasha is trying to save him. Also, can I just say one thing I forgot to mention in my non-spoiler review? I really do like the chemistry between Scarlett Johansson and Florence Pugh. I thought Florence Pugh was great as Yelena Belova, as the sister of Natasha Romanoff. I really loved their chemistry. Both the characters really did deeply. I enjoyed, cared about each other. I literally was cracking up when Yelena essentially, I guess you can say, somewhat breaks the fourth wall. How she was mentioning the point of the fact that, whoa, why do you always do the whole thing where you jump from somewhere high and then you do the kind of like the Spider-Man thing where you're like this and stuff like that. I thought it was hilarious. And you can also feel how Yelena was kind of like, I guess you can say, Yelena felt like she was a little bit betrayed by Natasha. She's like, why couldn't you get your Avenger buddies to help us out with the Red Room? Which, honestly, this could have been like an Avengers level type of threat that they could have dealt with. Um, don't know why, but hey, that was up to Natasha to see. At the time when they were all together, like they had said, like, hey, uh, there's something in my past that we need to stop. So yeah. But she thought at the time she thought she had taken care of it and everything. That's why they never brought it up. But essentially, they get Alexi out of there literally on the skin of their teeth because there's a part where Yelena fires off this rocket launcher to take out this tower, but she causes a legit avalanche. I was like, what the hell is going on here? Also, can I just say the white Black Widow outfits were clean as shit, man. They looked clean as hell. That's probably one of my favorite, Natasha character costumes, if not my favorite one. I love the white on her. I thought it was dope. But they cause an avalanche. Essentially, they get out of there and they're asking, like, do you know about? They're asking Alexi, you know about the whereabouts of the Red Room and everything, and he's like, I don't know much of anything, but Melina probably knows and stuff like that. So eventually, they go to Melina, the glorified mother in this family, and they go talk. We find out Melina's kind of been doing some projects for Dreykov and the Red Room, essentially, finding out about how to control things. Like we see her controlling these pigs and everything, like making the pigs sit, act like a dog, essentially. How she even makes it to where the pig can't even breathe and stuff like that. And that's when we find out, the data they stole was data essentially similar to the Winter Soldier, the Winter Soldier project, where essentially it's kind of mind control to where you control the victim, and essentially the victims know essentially what they're doing. They just can't do nothing about it and everything. That's what Dreykov's been making these Black Widows do. And we even find out that, from Yelena, like, the thing about with Dreykov is essentially one out of like 20 Black Widows really only get onto the Red Room, and the other like 19 more than likely are killed by him, which is pretty dark. This movie, at the end of the day, this movie was one of the darker MCU films. Like, I kid you not, there are some dark elements in this film that will be like, wow, this movie is pretty up there in terms of dark. Like, it is a dark film. Like, it is dark. They bring up some elements that you're like, that's really dark, like, and stuff like that. But yeah, eventually the family kind of gets into a fight and everything. Mostly it's from Natasha's side because she's like, you guys aren't really my real family, everything. And Natasha's whole perspective is essentially finding out her real mother's true name, which when you get to her scene with Dreykov, it's really emotional and really effed up. Again, keeping up another dark element of this movie. We'll get to that scene soon. But eventually they get raided by the Black Widows and Taskmaster and stuff like that. They get captured and they're all taken to the Red Room, which we find out the reason why they weren't able to ever find Dreykov and the Red Room was because, well, guess what? He was high in the sky, essentially, where nobody could potentially find him. So, yeah, don't ask me why Iron Man never could find him. No clue. Again, maybe again, like I said, Natasha never brought it up to the other Avengers because, well, hey, she thought she had taken care of this whole situation to begin with. But, well, that's what they were doing and stuff like that. So you have a scene, and the thing how they do is they make it look like Melina actually tricks all of the all over the characters, Alexi, Yelena, and Natasha. But in reality, when we get to the scene where Melina is talking to Dreykov, we find out, well, guess what? It was Natasha using the face kind of fake mask thing to get an upper hand and try to throw off the plan, while obviously Melina was pretending to be Natasha and everything and stuff like that. So her plan, Melina's plan was to shut down this whole Red Room system and everything, to be able to free the other Black Widows, thanks to Yelena eventually breaking out before her mind essentially got, I guess, reconstructed to being recontrolled again and everything, or killed or something like that. So that's the whole thing there. Now the Natasha scene with Dreykov is an interesting scene. We get a lot of revelations here in this scene, which obviously they revealed a little bit earlier on. So one of the biggest revelations we find out is that, well, guess what? Natasha cannot attack Dreykov because essentially all Black Widows cannot attack him when they smell essentially his, I guess you can say his, perfume and everything. So you see Natasha try to shoot him, stab him, do all a bunch of things, but he can't do it because just his, scent alone makes it as a way where Black Widows can't harm him. Essentially, it ends up to the point where, and it ends up to the point you see this guy literally punching her. It's kind of dark and it's like kind of messed up. And we see how he's kind of has this whole network of, girls where he's like, yeah, all these women, all these girls that, have no purpose, are all alone and stuff like that. I take them in and then I let them become Black Widows and stuff like that, knowing damn well that only a certain number of these women end up becoming full-fledged Black Widows, and then he just kills the rest, which again brings up the dark element. So it's kind of like human trafficking, a bit kind of messed up individual stuff. But like I said, he was hitting Natasha. It isn't until Natasha literally breaks her damn nose to be able to start attacking him and everything. But another big revelation is Natasha asks about her mother, and again, another kind of effed up dark element here is the fact that he's like, well, guess what? After your mother died, her tombstone reads nobody, and that was kind of messed up there too. But obviously, the biggest reveal in this scene with Natasha and Dreykov is the revelation on who Taskmaster is. And I said in my non-spoiler review, the Taskmaster stuff might get people up in freaking arms. And I can see it hell as well, getting in people's arms. And that is the thing is, they gender bent Taskmaster. Yes, Taskmaster is not a male like he is in the comics or any other media forms wherever he appears. He is a woman our Taskmaster is a woman in this film, presumably, which is really it's Dreykov's daughter, who we find out earlier in the film that Natasha killed back when her and Hawkeye were back in Budapest a long time ago to try to take out Dreykov earlier. Even though his daughter was there, Natasha still freaking hit it's time to blow him up. Even though it was, I guess you can say, a lost cause in terms of, I guess you can say, her being caught in the crossfire and stuff like that. So that's what we find out. And Taskmaster being the daughter of Dreykov, honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Like, a lot of people might have an issue like, that makes no sense. Taskmaster should have been a guy this entire time. But honestly, it doesn't bother me. I'll talk about a nitpick I have about Taskmaster with how they're going to take the character maybe into the future of the MCU. The thing is, the reason why I don't mind Taskmaster being a female, especially the daughter of Dreykov, is the fact that, the fact that, in any circumstances, and this is for anybody in real life too, sometimes you can do something in the past that affects somebody and it ends up coming back years later to bite you back in the ass. And that's what happened. Natasha ended up thinking she took out Dreykov, got his daughter caught in the crossfire, and guess what? Now his daughter's out for vengeance on her because of it. And that's a mistake she made, something from the past that essentially came back to bite her in the ass and everything. Now, it is kind of interesting to explain, how did Dreykov, survive the explosion like his daughter, just who barely survived the explosion. Maybe, it was somebody else, and Dreykov predicted, somebody's gonna come assassinate me. It's kind of a plot hole there, so they didn't really explain it, but it doesn't matter because Dreykov eventually dies later on because eventually what happens is Melina eventually manages to destroy the rotors and takes down the entire Red Room area. Yelena gets the serum to turn all the the other Black Widows back, and you get this crazy fight scene. It was pretty damn emotional where essentially you have Natasha against all the other Black Widows and they're kicking her ass eventually. It looks like Natasha's going to be triumphant in trying to take her down and everything, um, or take the Black Widows down, but eventually just the numbers are too much for her. But then Yelena throws essentially a grenade to disperse all the serum, make the other Black Widows, go back to their normal senses and realize what they're doing. While the thing's all blowing up, one, we see that Red Guardian, Alexei, was fighting against Taskmaster, and he was about to die, and it was thanks to Melina that he managed to stay alive, and she essentially locks him in the jail so that they were in. They eventually escape as the falling freaking Red Room is going crazy. Natasha also uploads this entire thing Dreykov was doing, which is also going to alert Thunderbolt Ross and everything there. So what happens, next up is Yelena is going after Dreykov, and we see Natasha sees this happening and everything. But one, as she's running through, she sees Taskmaster and she lets Taskmaster out, saying that she's going to try to save Taskmaster. Don't know why she just didn't leave Taskmaster in there, but okay, fine. But we see Yelena look like she's going to sacrifice her life. But again, Yelena is a new character, and I never believed they're going to kill her character off because she's going to be in future MCU obviously projects. But the thing is, Black Widow flies down, or I guess glides down or falls down, and she manages to catches up to Yelena, puts the parachute on them, but then that's when Taskmaster comes down and is trying to take out Black Widow. Again, if you ever thought to me that, well, we're gonna have somewhat of an aerial fight in this film, my God, it was insane. It was insane. Eventually gets down to the ground, and Black Widow and Taskmaster have their final duel. Eventually gets to the point where Natasha manages to get the mask off of Taskmaster, manages to use the serum on Taskmaster, makes her go back to normal, and essentially we get a reuniting scene with the family of Alexei, Melina, and Yelena. But we see Thunderbolt Ross. Also, I forgot to mention, after Yelena kind of stuck the one thing in the whole propeller thing on the plane, it kills Dreykov. So Dreykov is not going to be that overarching villain that gets away. I did like Dreykov as a villain. He was very sneaky and very conniving and just a total a-hole, man. I thought he was a pretty solid conniving, villain. He was really the main villain. Taskmaster was kind of like the side villain, the thing that Black Widow or Natasha had to overcome in this film. So yeah, but as I'm saying, anyways, they see Thunderbolt Ross and his group come up. Black Widow says, I'm gonna stay behind. You guys go on. The other Black Widows come to pick them up, and they're gonna not leave them behind. They take Taskmaster with them. Again, I'll get to Taskmaster. Actually, let's speak about the Taskmaster stuff right now. The one thing I kind of did not like about Taskmaster was how they, I guess, presumably ended the Taskmaster storyline right then and there. Like, kind of taken down somewhat fairly easy. And it seems like Taskmaster is now a good person, but that's the thing. But again, even though it's kind of a nitpick, I'm gonna wait to see where they take the Taskmaster stuff. Because maybe Taskmaster goes away. Maybe she goes away and she becomes Taskmaster, where she's just a hired hitman doing whatever she wants. And maybe she becomes some sort of anti-hero, I guess. And maybe she just takes hit jobs for whoever is going to be offering a bounty. Maybe they do that. Or maybe they, I guess, change it where she retires being Taskmaster. Someone steals the Taskmaster costume and tech, and you get legit, real, Taskmaster right then and there. They could do that. We're just gonna see what the Taskmaster stuff happens. I feel like either one of those two possibilities could happen, where eventually she just goes out on her own and she just becomes the Taskmaster we know, which is she's just a hired hitman. It doesn't matter if it's a good person or a bad person. She's gonna just gonna take the jobs regardless. If it's gonna give her money and the right stuff to keep her going. So I feel like this isn't gonna be the last Taskmaster we see. I feel like it would make perfect sense, especially with what's definitely going to be happening. The fact that I guess Spider-Man's going to be on the run. It would make a lot of sense if Taskmaster appeared in that film because somebody could say like, "Hey, I'm putting a hit on Spider-Man. Taskmaster, could you go take care of this kid?" I'm not saying Taskmaster is going to make an appearance in the film, but it would be pretty cool if Taskmaster did because Taskmaster, like I said in my non-spoiler review, Taskmaster is kind of a Spider-Man villain. Mostly a Spider-Man villain that gets in his way occasionally, but will appear. So I feel like Taskmaster could appear in most likely any, MCU film going forward from this point. Probably more than likely, maybe a Disney Plus TV show more than a film, but who knows? We'll see where the Taskmaster character goes. Or like I said, maybe somebody steals the tech of Taskmaster and becomes the official Taskmaster that we know, which is the standard male dude who goes out on hits. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. That's just a nitpick. Again, I can understand why some people somewhat don't like the Taskmaster way how they guys kind of left it open ended there. But if you're gonna just criticize Taskmaster because they gender bent Taskmaster, just get out of my face. I just feel like people just find something to hate on and yada yada yada. Because I feel like, oh, this is because your main character is a female. They have to make the villain a female as well. Wonderful, but again, I just gave you two potentially possibilities where Marvel could take Taskmaster, and that's EA. She just goes to become the hired hitman, whether it's good or bad, and she goes to hit on whoever she goes essentially do bounties on whoever she wants, or some dude just takes away or steals the tech of Taskmaster and becomes the Taskmaster we know, which is the male version of Taskmaster that essentially more than likely is just a hired bad guy. So yeah. But anyways, Thunderbolt Ross is about to come up on Black Widow, and that's kind of where it is. So we don't know where that scene goes. We cut back 2 weeks later, where the one friend who's kind of been hooking her up, getting her all this tech and all this gear over the time she's been running on the run, finally get a Quinjet. So that's how it essentially explains how when Steve managed to go to the raft and free mostly convicts that were in the raft, we now find out how he's able to get out of there because Natasha showed up with the Quinjet and managed to pick them up and drop them off in their own designated locations and stuff like that. Obviously, I think mostly with the exception of Ant-Man because he was on. Well, maybe they did free Ant-Man. I think they just saw that, and Thunderbolt Ross just essentially. Well, I guess you said you guys put Ant-Man on house arrest because that's what he was doing in Ant-Man and the Wasp. But obviously that's where it kind of leads into them retrieving the other Avengers that went against the Sokovia Accords. They dropped Wanda and Vision off in a European country while her, Steve, and Sam all, were on the run and everything like that and stuff like that. We also see that Yelena also gave Natasha the vest, which we see that is the same exact vest she was wearing throughout the essentially Avengers Infinity War. I don't remember if she was wearing it during Endgame. I think she was, but I haven't watched Endgame in quite a while, honestly, to be honest. That's where her story ends right then and there. We know what happens there. Now we get a post-credit scene where we see Yelena mourn over or come to the gravesite of obviously Natasha, but you would think the rest of the family members are there, but we cut over. But as it's panning over, again, spoilers. If you have not, and this is spoilers in general, and again, I'm giving no spoiler warning. If you have not watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, click off the video right now and go binge watch that series on Disney Plus, because you're not going to know who this person is if you do not know, or if you do not watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Anyways, you got your spoiler warning. Here I go. Anyways, the camera pans over and we see Val. Now, if you don't know who she is, well, too bad. I'm gonna spoil it. If you watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Val was at the end of really the tail end of that show in the last 2 episodes that essentially in the show recruited John Walker, aka uh, um, the fake Captain America, or the John Walker version of Captain America, the U.S. agent, to recruit him to hit her team. And it seems like her and Yelena have been in cahoots together, and essentially, Val's like, well, I just wanted to, obviously mourn the death with you. Obviously, it's a very sad thing and everything. And essentially, Yelena's like, what is it now? I'm only going to take your offer if you give me a lot of money and pay me a lot. And she's like, okay, yes, I will. But how about this? You want to get revenge on the person who killed your sister? And she pulls out her tablet, and it shows Hawkeye, and that seems like it's going to be Yelena's, I guess, person she's going to be targeting, which is, I'm guessing, going to be tying in to the Disney Plus TV show Hawkeye, which presumably, I believe, from what I've heard, is going to end off Hawkeye's story, and it's going to be the Kate Bishop coming of age story, which is his daughter and everything. But yeah, that was a complete shocker at the end. That's where the post-credit scenes ends off, and that's it. I thought what I would see instead of her Val, Sam would be like, hey, I knew your sister. You want to be a part of this Avengers team, and stuff like that, because I'm kind of rebuilding that right now. That's what I thought was going to happen, but it seems like Yelena is in this Val-centered Avengers-like team, because look at it. Val's got the U.S. agent, which is their equivalent to Captain America. Now she's got the equivalent to Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff's sister, Yelena Belova. So they've already got 2 people in their crew. And I feel like she's building up her own Avengers team to maybe potentially take down what was going to be the new reformed Avengers. And I think she's doing this because she sees, well, Tony Stark's dead and Captain America is old and gone. Well, in the timeline, people don't know he's an old man. People think he's dead as well. And obviously, she's like, and Natasha Romanoff's dead. Let me start with the irons hot. Let me get somebody who took the super soldier serum, like Steve Rogers, who's essentially like Steve Rogers. And let me get the person who was related to, or who has ties to Natasha Romanoff, to essentially take out a former Avenger for me. So obviously, it seems like Val is planning something. I don't know what, but it seems like she must be planning like her own dark evil Avengers type of thing going on. And if Avengers 5 is the new reformed Avengers against Val's Avengers, I'm down to see that movie. I am down to see that movie. Again, this also further shows you, well, guess what? You're going to have to wait till the Hawkeye show to see Yelena Belova again. So we'll see what happens, but I thought this movie was good. I enjoyed it. I had a blast watching it. And yeah, very heartwarming, heartfelt film, very dark film. But yeah, it was a much needed movie that I thought was pretty good to see. And it has, its tie-ins to the remaining part of the MCU. So I'm guessing whenever this movie comes out on DVD, you can watch this movie, I guess, directly. If you're watching it if you're watching the MCU movie in chronological order, you'll be watching Black Widow right after Captain America: Civil War. But other than that, I'm gonna for guys. So if you guys like the video, leave a like. Put in the comment section your thoughts on Black Widow. Did you like the movie? Did you hate it? What's your thoughts on Taskmaster and stuff like that? But other than that, I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Hopefully, you guys have a great rest of your day or night or when you check out this video. Until then, guys, I'll see you guys for the next movie review, which will more than likely which will probably be Suicide Squad. There's no other movies in theaters that I kind of want to watch really, but Suicide Squad will probably be the next movie review I do. Even though, let's be honest, I don't really like the DC films, but Suicide Squad looks promising, especially from the fact that it's made by James Gunn. So it looks like it's gonna be one of the good DC films. But the next MCU stuff I probably will review. Maybe I'll review Loki after it's done and just talk about it, the show in its entirety. And then really the next MCU movie I'm going to be reviewing is Shang-Chi, which is going to be a new character entered into the MCU, and stuff like that. But other than that, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Again, like I said, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day or night and checking out this video. Hit that subscribe button, and if you do hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell icon to make sure you get any updates. So whenever I upload to the channel, you get those notifications right to your phone. Other than that, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day and night and checking out this video. Until then, guys, peace.